Hello, everyone. I'm here with Lori Appleby Hoke. I'm so excited. She has a grandmother who actually came west or to the heartland on an orphan train, and she's got so much memorabilia and some information about just her experience. And I'm so excited to talk to her. So, Lori, thank you so much for being here.
Sure. Well, thank you, Diana. Thanks for having me. I just want to let you know how much I appreciate this opportunity to share my grandma's story. I'm already getting choked up. But it's quite a story, and it's a lovely way to honor her. And I think it's so cool that you do this with orphan train writers Descendants, because your readers are going to be really interested in finding out about some of those stories out there. So thank
Absolutely.
you so much. So yeah, whatever questions, I'm ready.
Oh, yes, and I'm so glad to be able to honor, your grandmother Rose this way. And I totally I get that, when we speak about the people we love, even when they're passed on, it just has so much meaning, and I think they can hear us. So, grandmother Rose is with us, I'm sure. So tell me, just from your experience, how did you come to understand that you had someone in your family who rode the orphan train, and what was did that spark something in you, interest or?
Well, I think I always knew that probably from a young age. It wasn't a secret. We knew that Grandma Rose was adopted, but I didn't really understand what that meant. Plus, she was always surrounded by so many people that as a kid, that was kind of incongruous to how could she be an orphan? There's all these people around. They were all my relatives. So it wasn't until the summer of 1969, and my dad was sent back to New York City for work, and the whole family, we went along. And lo and behold, the New York Foundling, where she was adopted out of, was celebrating their 100th anniversary. So we went there, and my mom got to talk to, some of the people that worked there, the administrators and whatnot. And I think at that point, I was like, wow, it must be kind of something important based on, what I was experiencing. I don't think that it really hit home with me probably until later, like as I got older and became an adult and started thinking about, well, what must that be like? And then especially when I had kids of my own, and just the thought of um, what that would be like for children. She was so young, she was 2 when she was adopted out. So what would that be like for her?
Did she ever tell you what that was like for her or relay any? Did she even remember? Because she was two, so
Yeah,
I imagine.
she remembered the ride. She was barely 2 when she wasn't quite 2 when she was put on the orphan train. And she remembered the dress. I have a picture of the dress to share with you. She
Nice.
remembered wearing that. I would say she talked more about, she didn't always talk about how she felt about things. I think she was more of kind of a private person in that respect, not to me or the grandkids anyway. She may have talked more about that to like my mom or my aunts, but I think it was just a very overwhelming experience for her, you
I
know?
can imagine. Two
Yeah,
years old, and oh,
yeah.
just I'm getting chills just thinking about it. So would you say that overall she had a positive experience? Or I mean, it sounds as if she did, but were there any bumps along the way, or did she ever allude to anything?
She, I think, fared better than some of the other kids because she was a cute little toddler. And from what I have learned, and I'm sure you as well, as to how the kids, and you talk about it in your book too, how they would bring them from station to station, and they'd be poked and prodded, and people would look inside their mouths like they were cattle or something. It was a horrible thing. With my grandma, there were farm families in Frankenstein, Missouri. That was actually the name of the town, Frankenstein, Missouri. And there were 13 families, and they went to their parish priest. They heard about this great need for these children that were living in New York City. And they went to the priest. He went back to the Foundling Hospital and brought 13 children with him out to Frankenstein and placed them in homes that way. So they rode the train, but as I understand it, they were like predestined to these homes. So I have a feeling they didn't have to go through quite the same trauma, although I think it still was very traumatic
Oh,
that some of the other kids did.
wow, that is fascinating. So, and back, then, children were just so valued, to have big families. My mother, comes from a family of cotton farmers in Arkansas, and they had 11 children. And,
Uh-huh.
big families were just, they were the thing. You loved your kids, you had kids, and you all worked together on the farm. It was just a different way of life. So, do you know what year it was that she rode the train out?
Yeah, she was born in 1899 and she rode the train in 1901.
Wow.
So, yeah. And another interesting thing to note is that her adoptive mother, Gertrude, was 60 years old. So
Oh,
imagine a 60-year-old woman back then in 1901, how, the life expectancy wasn't all that long, I'm sure. But because there was such a great need, they allowed her to adopt. So she and her husband had three grown children with families of their own. So
oh.
they were like grandparents.
Mhm.
But I think grandma always said they were kind to her. I think that one of the brothers' wives was not nice to her.
Oh.
Um, but I mean, I think she was a rather humble, quiet type of person. So I don't know why this woman was not nice to her. Maybe because she was young and she was sweet little girl kind of
Or
thing.
maybe supplanted by the cute little, now that she's older. Did Gertrude ever allude to why she adopted at that age, or did she ever lose a child maybe? And
I don't know the answer to that. I know grandma's adoptive father, Paul Gentges, died when she was like 10, so he wasn't around that long. And I don't know how much older he was than the mother. I kind of think they just wanted to help based on what I understand. They knew these kids needed homes. And I know that they called themselves the Foundlings, that's how they referred to each other. And grandma remained close. They all had pretty close ties. I do know that one of them committed suicide. I don't know the story there, but that's probably not surprising. Who knows what that person went through. But
yeah.
one of the girls, her name was Helen. She and grandma were like, they felt like they were sisters. They
Oh,
were, yeah, they remained close throughout their lives.
special. And so was Helen about the same age when, because there was 13 of them, and
Yeah, I think that she was. I think that she was. And I don't really know the age range on those kids because I think more people wanted to well, I guess it depended. Maybe some of the farm families wanted older kids who could work. But then I know now with adoption, people want to adopt little babies. So, grandma was just a cute little toddler.
well, it sounds like she just really wanted to help and, was a kind and caring soul. And so I think, your grandmother Rose had just the best. I mean, because, Gertrude would have been so experienced as a mother by that time too.
Yes, I do think grandma always carried, well, I know she did. She always carried with her the sense of abandonment um, because she had been abandoned. She was her parents. And I should backtrack a little bit too. She was born Bessie Kahn. Kahn was the spelling of her name on April 3, 1899. She was left at the Foundling Hospital. The Sisters of Charity had placed a cradle out on the steps, and that's where grandma was left with a little like birth certificate, if you will, pinned to her. And they took her in. They baptized her a few months after she was born, but it wasn't until the family adopted her in June of 1901 that she became Rose. So I think about that. And I think about, as a baby, as a kid, a little kid, your name is the first thing that because people always refer to you that way. And what was that like for my grandma? She'd been called Bessie for over 2 years and now she's Rose. Plus, on top of that, these people spoke only German. They knew very little English. And so the books in the house, all they had were German books.
Oh, wow.
The kids, the adult kids knew some German and English, but here's this little 2-year-old girl,
Wow.
and her name's changed. So what did that do to her? You know, a sense of belonging and a sense of, you know, who she was, her identity. I mean, at 2, you're pretty malleable, but I just think all that contributed to,
That
yeah,
would be a trauma for her. Absolutely.
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Mhm.
So then she didn't have siblings, or they didn't take any other children in? It was just Rose.
No, it was just her, and we've always wondered, that's a part of our identity. We're of Jewish descent, Jewish heritage, but we don't know anything about that family. If there are people running around that are our relatives, I'm sure that there are. I know she was very close with some of her, I guess they would be her nephews, her foster siblings, kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, she didn't have, a big family. She went on to have 10 kids. My mom was one of 10 kids. So she had that, that she wanted that sense of family that she did not have.
Oh, yeah. I can so imagine that. And then you describe her in her older years as just always having children and people around her. So yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, she sounds like a special lady.
She was. Yeah.
Well, so do you have that picture that you can show us of the dress? Is it anywhere
I
nearby?
I do. And I have some other pictures if you have time to see those too, or what, you let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. Show away for sure.
Okay. So if you want to do a screen share, I guess, can
Yep.
I can I
All.
go and share my screen?
Yep.
Okay. Let's
Oh, I
see.
can't wait. I've seen the one little dress and it's just, oh, precious.
Let's see. Okay. I don't think I'm allowed to share yet, though. Am I?
Mm.
What do I need to do here?
Oh, it says that you're sharing. Let's see.
Oh, wait, I see. I didn't hit the button.
Ah,
Oh, all right. Here, let me make this bigger here. So what we're looking at right now, that is her baptismal certificate that says, Bessie Kahn was baptized on third day of, or born on the 3rd day of April and baptized, I think it's the 5th day of June of the same year.
June 5th.
Um, we have that. This is the little blue dress with the stripes. One of the nuns must have made it for her, but that's what she wore on her orphan train journey, and she remembered wearing that.
I bet it's absolutely precious. Oh my
And it's
goodness.
cute. And then the white dress was the first communion dress. Grandma was quite a seamstress, and she made that dress for my mom and all of her sisters to wear when they made their first communion. And the quilt in the back was one that Grandma made. So my mom had this put together years ago. So
Oh, super. My grandmother made quilts as well, and they're just keepsakes in the family.
they're so nice to have. Here is Grandma Rose with one of her great grandchildren wearing that dress.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's really cool she was able to do that and see one of the kids dressed in that.
Yeah.
Uh, this is how they did things back then, apparently, but this was her placing out papers where it said she was adopted by Paul and Gertrude Gentges in Frankenstein, Missouri. Her foster brothers were Henry and Alex, and her foster sister was Christine, and her name of Bessie Kahn changed to Rose Gentges. So that's as official as it got. And maybe, they had more official records, but
That's my son's birthday. That's funny.
oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
29th. Yeah, he just turned 31.
oh, wow. That's so cool. Now this really gets me. I wrote to the New York Foundling Hospital many years ago to find out what records they have, but indenture, that's, this is her indenture agreement. And that's what the children, this was not just my grandmother, they all had this type of agreement. They were indentured.
Yeah.
Um, so that, yeah, it's a hard one to swallow.
Yeah.
Um,
Home,
this,
doesn't it though? I mean, just what they were up against as children and,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, it pretty amazing. This is the priest, Father Bachmeyer, who grandma remembered him carrying her. He's the one who went back to the Foundling Hospital and got the children and brought them out to Frankenstein. And she remembered him picking her up, taking her off the train and bringing her over to her family, her new family.
wow.
And we think that that little one right there is grandma. It's not a great picture. It's not in terms of being clear. And I've taken a magnifying glass to it and look at the faces of those kids, and it's just kind of heartbreaking because those are all kids that, well, they went to school there in Frankenstein. Some of them were the foundling kids and some were not, but none of them look very happy.
Did your grandmother ever say that folks in town treated her any differently, knowing that she was a foundling?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I know, it was a small town and people were probably very aware of all these kids. So hopefully they welcomed them. But yeah, because that could be, an X against them.
Sure. You know, a
Uh,
lot of the kids who came out from the AIDS Society, they called them train riders, and they
mhm.
sort of had a stigma, but it sounds like there were so many kids that came at once to that little town, they couldn't gang up on all of them, right?
Right.
Pick on them or tease them because there'd be so many of them.
Exactly. So hopefully that worked in their favor. That's just young Rose. She's probably, a teenager there. I like that picture because she looked happy. She looked like, things were going well. There she is again. It looks like in a studio. Um, I see her hair and I see my mother's hair and I see my hair and I see some of my siblings' hair. It's like that's where these things come from.
I know, isn't that neat?
It is. It is. It's really neat. And that is Rose on the left. And then that's her friend Helen, that was a foundling also. And they remained friends. It was a lifelong thing. I think Helen died first because my grandma lived till 101. So, yeah. And that's my grandpa, Frank. He was an Irish man who married this Jewish woman. And apparently, his family did not come to their wedding. They had met my grandmother, but they did not come to their wedding. And they wrote a letter instead to the parish priest inquiring about Rose's family and her character. And the priest was very offended at that. And he wrote back and he said that he set the Mulville family straight. Like, you do not go, talking bad about this woman who was, you
Good.
know,
Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know if it was that she was Jewish and, I don't know, but,
Oh,
and
that's
so these are half of the kids. This was just five. It looks like a lot to anybody, but grandma was busy with kids for, I think it was, I'm trying to think over how many years, 18 years, she had 10 kids, something like that.
wow.
This picture I like, she's got on earrings, and I don't know how many times, not very often, have I ever seen her with earrings on. So she kind of got dressed up for the occasion there, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
And then this is Buckeye, Arizona, where they moved to and they raised their kids. It's a small farming community. My grandfather was a blacksmith, and I think all the kids but two are there. Probably one of them she's carrying right now, but
Oh,
they
yeah.
it was a lot. And this is later, she was surrounded by these are all her daughters. That's my mom right there. They had four sons and six daughters. And she was so proud of her kids and her grandkids. She loved babies. She just loved being around family. That was her thing.
Wow. Neat lady.
And then the last picture, when she turned 100, we had a birthday party for her, but we also invited the Arizona Republic to interview her, and they did, and they shared her story, and that, like it says, she lived a full life despite not knowing where she came from. But she always wondered about that. She always wondered about her family, and how could you not,
That's that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing those. My
Oh,
goodness.
sure.
Um, Has it changed anyone in the family? I mean, did they ever go back and find her roots, or is it a lot of times it creates a lot of curiosity, right? And everybody's getting on Ancestry, and it's kind of
Yes,
neat. It's like a project. So
it is. And I know some of my cousins have gone on to Ancestry and we've compared notes. So far, nobody has turned up any relatives. And there, in fact, I did find a relative once that was related to her foster family, but it was kind of a wide net. So I'm interested in her relatives. I think we all are. But no, we've never been able to locate anybody, and I'm not through with that yet. But
yeah, you never know what will happen with technology, and
Mhm.
they're doing all of this stuff with our blood and our DNA. So who
Right,
knows what's going to happen there?
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Thank you so much for sharing that history.
Oh,
It's
sure.
fabulous. And I'm sure all the readers out there are enjoying all of this, rich history. And this is just another unique story, because I know Sisters of Foundling, they started in 1869, or Sisters of Charity, I'm sorry. And they were one of the first, the Children's Aid Society. And there was a lot of folks who actually put children on trains. And so, they didn't all do things the same way. And it's kind of interesting to hear another story. So,
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to share it. And yeah, that I just think that experience, I don't know how it wouldn't change anybody profoundly because it just shakes up your roots, totally.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's great.
Mhm.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Well,
And
thank
I,
you for
I
being
so
here.
appreciate this. And I hope everybody out there enjoys your story. And I'll talk to you later.
Thanks.